Preconditions. Already the theoretical part dealing with Kabbalistic mysticism will have advised the keen reader otherwise than all the relevant books accessible to him up to now. The Kabbalistic mysticism is the most difficult subject of the Hermetic science, since it does not just require knowledge, but also practical experience and cognition. Therefore much will remain incomprehensible to him who reads my books just to study its contents theoretically, for he will lack the necessary practical requirements. This is why I pointed out at the beginning of my third volume that it is absolutely necessary to complete the practical side of my first volume, Initiation into Hermetics, at least up to step 8, to be able to attain satisfactory results in the Kabbalistic mysticism. Having trained his spirit, soul and body quadrupolarly step by step, the student has been given, apart from many magic powers and abilities, a high grade of intuition by the Akasa principle. Consequently, he will not only be able to comprehend the profoundness of the universal laws, and thus also of QUABBALAH, but he will also be able to apply the same practically. Without a quadrupolar training of spirit, soul and body, it would be impossible to become master of the Kabbalistic, that is, the universal language. To speak Kabbalistically does not mean speaking with one's mouth or intellect, but speaking a quadrupolar language. And the ability of quadrupolar expression is thus called the true QUABBALAH. If someone wanted to study the Kabbalistic science only by his intellect, he would never be able to get the right idea of the same, so much less would he be able to make practical use of it. The future Kabbalist must learn to speak almost like a little child by acquiring, little by little, the quadrupolar use of a Kabbalistic letter, and later of a Kabbalistic word, sentence, so to occupy oneself with QUABBALAH without having undergone a magic training would naturally require a gradual development of the quadrupolar ability of spirit and soul necessary for the genuine utterance of the QUABBALAH. However, this would mean losing a lot of time and exerting oneself extremely, as any reasonable man will admit. Therefore, nobody should start the practice of Kabbalistic mysticism unless he has gone through my compendium of the first tarot card, my initiation into Hermetics, practically. Someone who masters the steps described in my first book in practice will soon be pleased about his good results in the QUABBALAH science. But someone who wants to apply the methods on the use of the genuine QUABBALAH at once, out of mere curiosity or inconsiderateness, exposes himself to various dangers. For in practice he would get in contact with various powers which he would not be able to control, and thus he would be in danger of ruining his health. Therefore, anyone not sufficiently prepared for this step is herewith warned in time. People of high moral and ethical standards with noble qualities of spirit and soul may engage in practical QUABBALAH, but also they, like anybody else, would have to acquire the abilities necessary for this. The teaching method of Kabbalistic mysticism aims at the use of letters, enabling one to speak Kabbalistically, that is, creatively. Just as the visionary, acoustical and emotional exercises laid down in my first volume Initiation into Hermetics contributed to the development of the spirit, the future Kabbalist must now drill the individual letters first visionarily, later acoustically and finally emotionally, in order to be able to pronounce a letter Kabbalistically in a fully conscious way. The first step is therefore the visionary practice of pronouncing the letter. The visionary aspect of a letter refers to its light, its color, to the eye, and is analogous to the principle of volition. Thus the student again starts with the first characteristic of the spirit, the principle of volition. Before describing the exercises with the individual letters, I should like to premise once more that I do not ascribe to any religion of the world the right of claiming to be the original source of this high science. The student of the practical QUABBALAH need not have any knowledge of Hebrew or any other language. The universal expression of a letter is not its form but its color or, to be more exact, its color oscillation. Since the color oscillation of the letters is their best perceptible form of expression, anyone can engage in QUABBALAH irrespective of the intellectual language he speaks. An Occidental is just as capable of imagining the right color of a letter as an Oriental. Imagining a letter in its true color is, at the same time, pronouncing it with a certain oscillation of light in the mental world, the mental sphere. Someone might argue in this connection that there exists different shades of color and that therefore color cannot be the most decisive form of expressing a letter. Objections like these, however, will only be made by non-initiates, since an initiate knows very well that the idea of color one has depends on one's state of maturity. Depending on your individual voice, you pronounce "na" with a higher or a deeper voice, causing a typical sound oscillation which is different from anyone else's, but in reality you are just pronouncing "na" which will be perceived as "na" by everybody who hears it. The same is true of a color imagination. Whether you get a darker or a lighter color oscillation is not so important. The basic tone of the color always plays the most important role and will denote the respective letter. Though it is possible to record color oscillations by the aid of physical instruments, it must be stressed that the human eye's susceptibility for colors depends on one's individual sensibility. Thus the above objection goes amiss for, depending on his individuality, the future quabbalist will learn to pronounce each letter accompanied by its respective color, that is, with his own plastic imaginative faculty. Since he has practiced the principle of volition, he will be able to transfer into the color the power that is due to the respective letter. The exercises of the first step of the QUABBALAH course consist of learning to express the whole alphabet by colors.